going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Hills Are Silent podcast, where we chop it up about the games of yesterday, today, and tomorrow. It has been a wonderful week. Let's dive in. Mitch, I know you've been playing something new. What you been playing, my man?
It's been a new bedtime game that I've been playing, and you know how much I love a good bedtime game, something to wind me down, and a lot of times I do gravitate toward the puzzle games. And I do a lot of Sudoku on my on my Switch, I should say. And but this time I'm playing a Japanese puzzle video game developed by HAL Laboratory, and it is called Picross 3D Round 2. I actually recently software modded my 3DS, so nice. I had a thank you, Mike, for showing me the ropes on that one. So I had some games at my disposal, and I was always curious about this one, and I was looking for a puzzle game before bed, and I happened to stumble upon this one, and it does not disappoint. I had heard it has gotten really very favorable reviews from people that actually listened to another podcast where a guy was doing a similar situation, was playing it a lot before bed, so I figured I would give it a try. The rules of Picross are kind of confusing, but I'm not very good at it, I don't think, but I am having fun with it. So these rules of Picross are applied to a three-dimensional puzzle. There's like 3 difficulty levels. I'm just doing medium, which honestly I probably should turn it down a notch because I'm not doing great. I'm getting through them, but I'm making mistakes. So it's easy, medium, and hard. Players must analyze the numbers featured on rows and columns and either paint or break specific blocks to reveal a 3D model of an object or a character. I found one that was like a little like duck, and like it could be like a duck or something like as simple as like a pencil, or it's just these little 3D models of random figures, but it's fun to see what they are as you're like going through this puzzle, and you can kind of see it take shape.
So it's almost like you're playing a puzzle game, but at the same time you're sculpting and chiseling away to reveal your sculpture, I guess to say.
Exactly. Yeah, you're chiseling away, but you're also painting either blue or orange, depending on, you got to follow the rules of the numbers that are shown in the rows and columns. It kind of reminds me of a Rubik's Cube almost, but like instead of like just turning the Rubik's Cube to try and match colors, you are painting it with different colors, and then as you said, chiseling away. As I said, it's a bit hard to play. I think I'm way better at Sudoku than I am at this, but it's been a fun challenge. It gets the brain going. Like I said, it's a good bedtime game. It kind of wears me out because I'm really having to think about the rules that they bring forward in these games, and it gets harder as I go along. So yeah, it's been a fun one. It's really the only thing that I'm willing to share. I'm playing right now, but it's definitely been worth the time I put in. You a fan of puzzle games, Mike? I don't think we talk about puzzle games very often.
Man, rarely do I play puzzle games. Yeah, probably the closest I get is other games that have puzzle aspects in them, like Resident Evil. The old school Resident Evil games have puzzles. Every once in a while, I'll play like a point-and-click adventure game, which typically has puzzles in it, but those are a little different than stuff like Sudoku. Is that how you say it? Sudoku?
I say Sudoku. I
Sudoku.
Think it's, but
okay.
I think some people do say Sudoku though too.
I don't know, man. Shows you how much I play that. But yeah, definitely puzzle games right before bed are good, because if I'm jumping in some game where I'm like shooting people and stuff, like my adrenaline's gonna get going and I'm not gonna get sleepy. But if I play a puzzle game, then yeah, it's going to put me out. And actually,
good.
One puzzle game I did play not that long ago was one of your favorites, the Ace Attorney series.
Oh yeah. Kind of a point and click adventure as well, but yeah, definitely put a lot of puzzle elements in that.
Yeah, so that one, that's a hybrid, because that's kind of like what were we talking about? Graphic novel. That's kind of like a mix between a graphic novel a light puzzle game because you're solving the cases, and point and click adventure. Yeah, I wouldn't say it has too much point and click adventure, although I was only playing one game out of the series, so I don't know. And it was like, I think I was playing the very first one on the 2DS.
Yeah, I think a graphic novel is a better way to describe it than point and click.
But yeah, that was a good one right before bed because you get some story and then some light puzzles. And yeah, I was asleep, and just after a couple of minutes, the 2DS on my lap, or 3DS because I'm playing on 3DS, even though it's a 2DS.
Little pencil that for the 3DS still in your hand while you're sleeping.
Dude, when I got a 3DS, I went on eBay and bought like a whole pack of those styluses because I'm like, I know I'm gonna lose these all over the place. It was like $2 for like a 10-pack or something.
Oh yeah, they're so cheap.
Anyway, cool, man. This is not one I've heard of, and yeah, I didn't even know this existed until you brought it to my attention.
Yeah, if you have a 3DS, it's definitely one. I'm not sure what it costs to get a physical copy of this these days, but I kind of want to.
Man, 3DS games have been going up in price. It's been getting ridiculous. I'll take a look.
Round 2 physical.
Picross.
Okay, it looks like you can get some on. Let me go to eBay here.
Wait, which one? You said this is the second one?
Yeah, this is round 2. There's not a big difference between the two games.
I'm not even seeing this. How do you spell it? Oh, Picross 3D.
Picross.
Picross 3D. I'm only seeing the first one on DS. So
I see the second one on 3DS. It is $15.99, but it's also a $10 shipping charge. So, but still reasonable.
Not horrible.
No. Yeah, but there are some 3DS games that are very sought after and hard to get nowadays.
Yeah, when I was at that used game store in Gulf Shores the other week, in the glass case, they had a ton of 3DS games, and I mean, a lot of them were in the hundreds. It was just a bunch of RPGs or JRPGs, and I was just like, man, these are going up like crazy.
Yeah, those JRPGs, man, they're always sought after.
Yeah, that's why like Nintendo consoles, I rarely collect for, because it's just, man, that's the rich man's console in the collecting world. All those Nintendo stuff, the GameCube, 3DS, Super Nintendo, N64, all that stuff just gets too expensive.
I'm a Wii U collector. Like that's probably my main one that I actually like seek out and collect for, and I still haven't bought some of them because they're just insanely priced. I'm just like, I can't justify this.
yeah, the Wii U's going up too. I mean, the fact that it did not sell well means that there's less copies of all these games out there, which that always equals more expensive when it comes around to collectors wanting to get a hold of them.
It's funny because we talked about Zelda Breath of the Wild in the past episode, and that is one of the games where I thought, oh, like a Wii U copy might be like really sought after, but they apparently printed a ton of those because they're still pretty cheap. They're cheaper than the Switch version.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's Picross 3D round 2. Fun game. Enjoyed it going to bed. You are playing something that's a little bit different than a puzzle game. What have you been playing on your handheld?
Yeah, absolutely. So same situation. Been playing my handheld a lot, and in my case, it's the PlayStation Vita. And man, my Vita is just still going strong. There's so many games that are being ported to it every single day. So many homebrew games that are created on it. And
I'm gonna need to pick one up. That's probably my next purchase is finding a Vita that's in good shape.
Yeah, it's worth it, man. So I've been playing the original Max Payne on the PlayStation Vita. So this game came out in 2001 for PC, PlayStation 2, and OG Xbox. And I played it back in the day. I definitely played it on PlayStation 2 and original Xbox. I beat it a long, long time ago on one of those consoles. I don't remember which one was the one I beat it on. And I love this game. It's just action-packed. It's Remedy Entertainment developed it, and it was published by Rockstar Games. And it's so great. It's like a John Woo movie. There's definitely heavy influence of that in the game. You're a cop whose wife and kid were murdered by some drug addicts. And there's this new drug on the street called Valkyrie that is extremely powerful and extremely dangerous. And it's basically just destroying the city. And you're basically really, really angry, really pissed off, wanting to get vengeance for the family you lost. So you're going deep into the underground crime world to figure out who is behind all this stuff, who's supplying all these drugs. You're basically like a renegade cop. You've been framed for murder, so even the police are after you. You're left as a lone wolf vigilante, essentially. And it's a third-person shooter, and it's one of the original games to introduce slow motion. So basically like bullet time, where you can click a button on the controller and you'll just go in slow motion. You can dive to the side or dive back and then spin around the room and shoot everybody and take them out in slow-mo. And I remember that just blowing my mind as a kid. And of course, after Max Payne came out, so many games copied that and started implementing that into their games. So it's not as novel as it once was when Max Payne was first released. And there were some sequels. Max Payne 2, I could not get into the second one. I was so disappointed in it. But I also think that it wasn't the best port to console. I think it was much better on PC. Years later, went back and played it on PC, and I was like, okay, this is actually a good game. It just wasn't good on consoles. And then a long period of time, I think like 10 years went by before they released Max Payne 3. And then I played through Max Payne 3, and that was a really good game as well. And after that, I think it sold pretty well too, but after that, no more sequels. There was like a random-ass movie starring Mark Wahlberg that came out for the game.
You know how much that pisses me off when they put Mark Wahlberg as the main character of any video game property. They did it with Uncharted as well, and it just, oh man, that really grinds my gears.
Really? I haven't watched that yet. Is that good? The Uncharted movie?
Not in my opinion. I just can't get over how bad the casting is. Like, Tom Holland as Nathan Drake and Marky Mark as Sully is just awful. If you look at these characters in game compared to them, like, I can't get over that. I mean, it's a solid like movie if you want to watch it just as like if you know nothing about the Uncharted series, but as a big Uncharted fan who's beaten all of them, it pisses me off.
Yeah, those actors don't look anything like those characters. And I remember the actor Nathan Fillion really wanted to play Nathan Drake. So much so that he worked on basically like an unauthorized short film based on the game, and it was so good. Like, that was basically him trying to make like a professional audition tape, like, yeah, make this movie and have me be Nathan Drake. Do I think he really looks like Nathan Drake? Not really, but definitely more than Tom Holland. And I just think that he was a fan of the game and was way more enthusiastic to be that character than probably Tom Holland was. But I don't know. I didn't see the movie. So maybe Tom Holland's a huge Uncharted fan. Maybe he really wanted that role. Or maybe he was just auditioned for it because he wanted another movie role. I don't know.
He's the popular male actor right now because of his Spider-Man role. So I think they really just wanted to put him in the movie just to get, to make sure it's sold.
Yeah, they knew his name would sell. When you got a big name actor, it can really help a movie. So I understand that from the studio's point of view. But yeah, it's just like there's so many people that are really big fans of certain properties, and they go after these the rights and they're the ones who want to make these projects, and then it just never seems to go to them. It seems to go to somebody else who's kind of just not a fan, and it's just the next project that ended up in their lap, I guess.
Right.
Anyway, totally getting sidetracked. So
kind of to rope it in, they are actually making a Max Payne and Max Payne 2 remake compilation at some point.
Really?
So they are at least going to revive something in the property, which, hey, it might lead to a sequel down the line if that sells well.
Okay, cool. I didn't know about that. I wonder if they're doing like a full-blown remake, or if they're just maybe remastering the original games and re-releasing them on modern consoles. Because the interesting thing is, I don't know about Max Payne 2, but Max Payne 1 is... This game is readily available. Like, you can get this on PlayStation 4, which I'm assuming you can also get it on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. Like, this game has constantly been ported forward. And yeah, it's just like the PlayStation 2 version running on the modern consoles, but still, it's nice that you can get this on Steam, you can get this on the modern consoles. And I'd really be curious how many people own this on newer consoles and actually played it on there. But anyway, I played it on my Vita. It was not officially released. It's actually the Android port, because at one point this game was ported to Android phones. And not only was it on the Vita, not only is it a port of the Android game, but the developers that ported it went in and modified the Android version of the game to be even better. So they basically got the high-res textures and a lot of the assets from the PC version and injected them into the Android version. So it looks even better, and it has some additional features that the original Android game did not have. So this is basically like a really good port, and it runs really smooth on the Vita. The only thing is I made the mistake of playing the game on hard mode, and it is nearly impossible. I mean, at this point I'm already like 2/3 through the game, which surprisingly is a pretty long game. It's like a 15-hour campaign at least. And it's just brutal. And especially playing it on the Vita with those tiny little joysticks. Like, I don't know how anybody would have beaten this on hard mode on like PlayStation 2 or Xbox. Like, you have to play this with keyboard and mouse.
Or on like an Android, for that matter, if you're trying to
on an Android, like touchscreen? Oh, no way. No way. If you beat this on hard mode on Xbox or PlayStation 2, or even Android nonetheless, let me know. Because, man, I will give you a standing ovation. So, yeah, this game's been kicking my butt. Luckily, it has a quick save feature. Which is amazing, because that's typically something it was just in PC games. A lot of console games at the time only relied on checkpoints. So basically, before every encounter with an enemy, before every new battle, I'm saving. Like, it's that bad, and you're gonna play every single battle like 10 times until you get it just right and get lucky and get past it.
If they got the feature, abuse it. Might as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what I always did back in the day.
In the long run,
on PC and even modern games, if they got a quick save, you best believe it. I'm not restarting all the way over from the beginning of the level. Forget that.
Right. Back to the remake, though, I did find the article. It says the project is sounding like a full remake, given it will be developed on Remedy's newest engine and will have a matching AAA budget. It's tantalizing to imagine the original Max Payne games built using the same engine as Control and Alan Wake 2.
Oh, wow.
So that's the rumor, but it's an IGN article. It's very legit. So that the rumor is it might be a full remake, which would be cool.
That would be awesome. So the beautiful thing about this game is, like I said, this thing has been released on every platform. It's readily available. It's still readily available to this day. And it's a classic game, so everybody should be able to enjoy this. I mean, this is like, just one of those historically great third-person shooters that still holds up today. Right now, it's $10 on Steam. I'm sure it's even cheaper during a sale.
Nice.
But unfortunately, Mitch, you brought to my attention another IGN article that is about how so many classic games are not commercially available. And this is something that really hits home with me, because there are a lot of old games that I want to play that I just can't. They're not on Steam. They're not on any of the digital distributor platforms. They're not on Xbox Marketplace. They're not on Switch. And don't get me wrong, plenty of old games have been ported to these consoles and are available, but it's just a drop in the bucket compared to how many classic games are out there. So IGN just released this article, and its new study compares classic games to silent movies. Says just 13% of classic games are commercially available. The Video Game History Foundation hopes new study will open libraries to classic games. Now, this is a really good article that you brought to my attention. I definitely have a lot of opinions about this and want to go over it. But just to give the listeners the rundown, I'll quickly go through this article. So, spy shooter No One Lives Forever was critically acclaimed when it released back in 2000, earning multiple awards, nods, and a sequel. We called it one of the best shooters of the year in our original review. If you want to play it in 2023, though, you'll have to turn to one of the handful of digital archives available on the internet, because neither No One Lives Forever nor its sequel are commercially available on Steam nor anywhere else. No One Lives Forever is one example of a market where just 13% of games made before 2010 are commercially available. A new study conducted by the Video Game History Foundation revealed. For every remastered update of Metroid Prime, thousands of games are difficult or even possible to obtain legitimately, including games on popular platforms like the Game Boy. Imagine if the only way to watch Titanic was to find a used VHS tape and maintain your own vintage equipment so that you could still watch it. The Video Game History Foundation's Kelsey Lewin wrote in a blog explaining the study. And what if no library, not even the Library of Congress, could do any better? They could keep and digitize that VHS of Titanic, but you'd have to go all the way there to watch it. Like silent movies, that's roughly the situation the video game industry finds itself in, says the new study, which compares the commercial availability of classic video games to the survival rate of silent movies, which is 14%, and pre-World War II audio recordings, which is 10% or less. The new study, which the Video Game History Foundation describes as the first of its kind, examined more than 4,000 games released in the US before 2010, with a special focus on the Commodore 64, Game Boy, and the PlayStation 2. The Commodore 64, which was first introduced in 1982, is described as an abandoned ecosystem with the lowest level of commercial interest, while the Game Boy is described as neglected and the PlayStation 2 is called active. It found that the overall availability of historical games is dire, with many held back by technical challenges, rights issues, and other problems. GoldenEye 007, which was finally re-released on Xbox and Switch earlier this year, has 6 separate rights holders, including direct competitors Nintendo and Xbox. By the way, this article has a lot of typos, which is odd for an IGN article, but anyway,
very odd.
Continuing on, No One Lives Forever has 3 rights holders, and according to the study, none of them are entirely sure who owns what. It can also be prohibitively expensive to port games to new consoles, with Limited Run Games CEO Josh Fairhurst estimating that just one port can cost up to $350,000. The result of all these challenges is that only the most popular retro games are re-released to modern platforms, with the rest being available at vintage gaming shops, emulation, or digital archive sites. The struggle to obtain classic video games legitimately is mirrored in other mediums as streamers like HBO Max and Disney Plus dude, there's even more typos in this. Pull hundreds of shows in return for tax benefits. Modern services such as Xbox Game Pass, PlayStation Plus, and Nintendo Switch Online offer access to vintage games in return for a nominal fee. Another typo. As do retro collections like Digital Eclipse's popular Cowabunga collection for the Teenage Ninja Turtle games. However, many more games remain tied to outdated hardware, and demand from collectors has driven up prices. Note, the Video Game History Foundation was founded by Frank Cifaldi in 2017. Yeah, I got a lot of comments about this, but One thing to note, it is interesting that they compare it to the survival rate of silent movies, because I remember in college I took a film history class, and yes, the professor told us that, like, yeah, most movies made before, I don't know, I think it was like the 1920s or something, have been lost to time, and many of them due to fires. There was like a huge fire at one of the well-known movie studios at their warehouse, and it basically wiped out this huge archive of all of their old movies, and a lot of those are the only copies, and they were lost forever in this fire. And also, film reels deteriorate over time, and if they're not properly stored, then yeah, they just disintegrate and those movies get lost. It's very sad to hear that. And video games, if not preserved digitally, are going to suffer the same fate. I've heard of something called CD rot, where compact discs slowly disintegrate. I don't know how true that is, because I've never had that happen to any of my CDs, and I got some old CDs. So, but I don't know. But anything over time will deteriorate. Actually, I will say some of the GameCube games I've gotten have started to deteriorate. I don't know what type of glue or ink they used, but the top of the discs will bubble and flake off.
Oh.
And then you lose the actual
graphic.
You lose the graphics, but you actually are also losing the underside, which is where the disc is actually red.
Oh, yeah.
So the interesting thing is, some discs, they'll have a label on top of them that has the graphics on one side, and then the shiny part on the bottom that's actually read by the laser. And you got to be careful, because if you scrape the top of that disc, you'll scrape the silver part underneath that actually holds the data, and then the laser won't be able to read the disc. Fortunately, some disc manufacturers do that differently. Like PlayStation 2 games, the label on the top has nothing to do with the silver layer on the bottom. It's actually two pieces of plastic glued together. So you have one piece of clear plastic, the silver part that holds the data, and then you've got another piece of plastic sandwiched on top of that, and then you have the label. So on a PS2 game, you could scratch the entire label off the top and the disc would still be readable, but on a GameCube game, you can't do that.
Okay, that's interesting.
But anyway, I got more to say on this, but what's your thoughts on this? Is there any games that you really think should be preserved in your opinion? Is there any games that you tried to find and weren't able to find? Is there any game you're really glad that is still being brought forward to digital platforms and newer consoles? What do you think?
Yeah. Those are great questions, honestly. And I need a moment to think about it. But a little bit of something not related, but you were talking about how a lot of those movies were lost in a fire or whatnot. It kind of reminded me of the Wu-Tang Clan, when the guy had all of his music in his basement, and he had a huge flood, and all that Wu-Tang music was just gone, all of it, because he only had one copy of it, and it was all in their basement. So I mean, like, it just goes to show, I mean, like, with whatever media it is, you got to have backups everywhere. I mean, or else, like, you lose so much work, which is just really sad to happen. But going back to the video games, I'm trying to think. I mean, I'm a Wii U collector, as we were just talking about, and there are some Wii U games that are very tough and very expensive to get. I was actually just at Mega Replay, and the WarioWare that they brought to Wii U, I guess they only had a limited run of copies on that one, because that one is in their like glass case. Like, you cannot touch it unless, you ask him you're gonna, to buy it, and at the Mega Replay. And I think it was probably like $200 or $300 for that, which that's pretty crazy for a WarioWare property.
Yeah, do you know if that's been ported to Switch? Because I know a lot of those Wii U games were ported to Switch.
That one was never ported to Switch, which is probably why it's so expensive. I think they are bringing it over to Switch now. I think I saw during their Nintendo Direct that they are bringing it over. But that's definitely one example. Another one in the Wii U Connect collection is Twilight Princess. For some reason, Twilight Princess, whether it's on just the standard Wii or even Wii U, hundreds of dollars always to get one of those, and which I think is just wild, because I mean it was brought over to multiple properties. It was, I believe, Was Twilight Princess on GameCube as well?
Yeah, it
Or,
was. I got a copy of it on GameCube.
yeah, literally, it's been on GameCube, Wii, and Wii U. Yet, any of those, whether you get on any of those, you're spending a pretty penny to get one of those copies. And it's one that I still really want to get, but haven't bit the bullet on it yet. So, it's a lot of these limited run games, which is why you as a collector, Mike, have always like thought about, you're always thinking ahead. Like you were talking last week with I think Proteus was the one that you were talking about. You're like, I think there was only limited copies of this, I'm going to snag one, because who knows in a few years if you're able to get one for a cheap price.
Yeah, and Twilight Princess, to your example, I got that for cheap. And then, yeah, like a year after I got it, all of a sudden demand skyrocketed for it, and now so I think I paid like $25 for it. And then now, yeah, it's well over $100.
Yeah, I was just looking at the Exchange, this game store I go to now here in Chicago, and I was looking in the Wii U section, Twilight Princess, $150. I'm like, man, craziness. Yeah, that's when I've kicked myself, because I'm sure I could have got it cheaper years back.
Yeah.
What were your other questions though? When we were brainstorming, it was
yeah, what's a game you are glad that has been continuously ported and brought to newer consoles and new generations and is still available?
yeah, I like that they actually mentioned that Cowabunga collection for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I own that collection actually, because I have so many fond memories of being in Chuck E. Cheese in our hometown in Peoria and playing that Ninja Turtles arcade game, and that has been ported over multiple times. Like I remember playing it on the Xbox 360 and being able to do online with my friends on the 360 and playing that game. It was like mind blowing to me, because I was like, I don't have to use quarters anymore. I don't have to be at Chuck E. Cheese. Like it was crazy to me. And then so like I actually got a chance to beat that game with friends, because usually you run out of quarters at Chuck E. Cheese and you can't make it through the whole game. I think the Turtles property, because they have a lot of good games in that one. You and I just played Shredder's Revenge not too long ago.
Yeah, and that's like their spiritual successor.
Yeah, I'm glad they're still making that exact type of game. But that whole Cowabunga collection has a lot of really good like titles from the Ninja Turtles. There's a lot of good games back then with that property. So that's probably one of my big ones. What about you?
So I do find the part of this article interesting where the CEO of Limited Run Games says that it can cost up to $350,000 to port a game, and then they mention, oh, this is why only the most popular games get ported forward and preserved. That's not entirely true, because what I find interesting is Limited Run Games just made an announcement of new games that they're porting and bringing to modern consoles, and one of them is the Gex collection. And I don't know anybody that liked that game or anybody that even owned that game. So I was very, very shocked to learn that they're going to spend the time and invest the money to bring that game forward. Because I'm like, who's asking for that? Who's going to buy that?
I think I did own one of those games on my Game Boy Color at one point, but I couldn't even tell you anything about it. There must be some cult following, because I don't understand it either.
Yeah, maybe so. And there's plenty of games that are very popular that don't get ported forward because of the rights issues. And one of the ones they talk about is No One Lives Forever. And I do own a copy of that for PC. I think I found it at a thrift store for like $1. And not only is it hard to get a hold of, I lucked out, like I said, found it at a thrift store, but not only is it hard to get a hold of because it's not on any of these digital platforms due to it being stuck in like rights limbo, but that game is really hard to get running. Like you can't just pop a CD in a modern computer and then it boot up. Like there's all these like fan-made patches you have to install just to be able to run it on a modern system. So, and this goes back to what they were saying, like when they were making the comparison to what if you wanted to watch the Titanic and the only way you could do it was to hunt down an original VHS copy, which I don't think is that great of a comparison because I'm pretty sure the Titanic came out on DVD as well. I'm pretty sure DVDs were out at that time. But anyway, I get the point they were making. Or I could be wrong. I don't know. But yeah, so So yeah, there are certain situations where the original hardware is the only way to run it without extensive development work. And but I'm totally that guy. I'm the guy to go get that original hardware to get it running. And there was a game that came to mind, Parappa the Rapper, and really any of like the old rhythm games, because they were built for CRT TVs, there has to be, they won't work on modern televisions because there has to be zero latency. Otherwise you have lag and you're always going to be off beat. And it's stuff like that. It's like, yeah, dude, I will definitely own a CRT TV so I can go back and play that game and actually play a rhythm game or a light gun game. In some situations, unfortunately, the only real practical way to play it is with the original hardware, without basically redoing the entire game, which would cost a fortune.
I think another really good example, and one that I'm super thrilled exists still, is the Master Chief Collection on Xbox. I mean, while it's not as old of a property as some of these other games we've been talking about, it still spans multiple console generations, and it's super impressive that they put together a complete collection of my favorite gaming property in Halo. And I can go in, I actually just re-downloaded it recently. I can go in and I can say, hey, I feel like playing some Halo 2 today, just classic Halo 2. I can queue up just some classic Halo 2 and the game mode that I want specifically. Or I'm like, no, I just want to play some Halo 3 shoddy snipers. I can queue that up as well. And they have every single campaign too. It's all just in one package. Like, I mean, I think that's super impressive by 343 and Xbox to have that available, because I will be playing that for years.
Yeah, and we can only wish that every game we love from our childhood or earlier on in our life can be preserved to that extent and get that much love and care and resources. And because that is an amazing collection, and I can't even start to fathom how much work went into that. Like, I know it had a rocky launch, but I don't think people understand the hurdles you have to jump through to do something like that, to port something forward, to especially games from multiple consoles. You got the original Xbox 360, and they're bringing it all to one console. Each of those poses its own unique problems. It's not like you just solve the problems of one and you can copy and paste it to the next Halo game.
Right.
So, I'm really grateful for a lot of the stuff that gets not even remade, remastered. I love remakes, but also if it's a classic game, sometimes all I need is a remaster. Maybe a higher resolution, make it run at a higher frame rate. Other than that, if it was a great game to begin with, just leave it as it is in its original artistic integrity.
And that's how I was doing with Resident Evil Code Veronica just recently. I mean, they just kind of bumped it up to it literally says Code Veronica HD. So it was still all the same, just a little better graphics for the 360, which it was a great experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, as much as I'm the guy who likes to go back and play stuff on original hardware, it's not always practical, and I like to collect games, but I also don't like to go broke. And once games become so rare and then they're hundreds of dollars for a copy, then if it's not backed up digitally, then I can't get my hands on it. And I think the mass majority of people, for easier access, all this stuff does need to be backed up digitally. And love it or hate it, the emulation community is doing that work. And we wish that publishers and developers would spend the resources to back this stuff up and always have it readily available. But that's doesn't always make business sense. It's not always economically feasible. So fortunately, there is a dedicated community, just like this Gaming History Foundation, that is trying to preserve all this stuff. Because the quicker we can get it dumped and digitally available, the better. Because eventually, all this stuff will end up in landfills. Collectors will die, and then their stuff will just get thrown out by their family, or or whatever it is, or the stuff deteriorates. Yeah, the digital preservation is very important. And but yeah, with all these companies creating ports and remakes and remasters, you brought another one to my attention, which is this new collection. It looks like it's at least coming to Xbox, maybe PC as well. And this is
it might already be available on PC.
You said it is available on PC?
I think it is already available.
Okay, and this is the Antstream. Oh no, this is where. Wait, what is this thing even called?
It's Antstream Arcade.
What'd you say it was?
Antstream Arcade.
Antstream Arcade. Okay. So this is a collection of 1,300 classic games. And there's been tons of these collections. I mean, going way back. I remember on the original PlayStation, you could buy like the Atari collection or the arcade collection, and they would have games from like the 80s, a bunch of Atari games or a bunch of old arcade games on one disc. And then the PlayStation 2 and the original Xbox had like Mega Man collections. That was like all the Mega Mans, and SNK collections, Capcom collections that had a bunch of their vintage arcade fighting games. So yeah, this concept is not new, but it is awesome to be able to just purchase one product and then just get a whole bundle of old games. Maybe stuff that you loved from your childhood, or maybe you just want to discover some old game you never knew existed.
Yeah.
But man, 1,300 games? Holy crap, I can't even begin to fathom the logistics they had to go through to get the rights to all that stuff. Like, we talked about, it's hard enough to get the rights for one game, like No One Lives Forever, let alone 1,300.
Yeah,
so kudos to them.
It really seems like they have a really good UI for this whole thing too. Like, it seems very organized.
Nice.
They do world tournaments with this. They have the couch co-op capabilities, mini game challenges, community like games, daily challenges, the leaderboards. It's a whole UI system within these games. I think that they've done a really good job with it from what I've seen.
Yeah, and it covers a lot of consoles. So first of all,
yeah,
my only gripe is that this appears to be digital only. I can't just buy a physical copy and have all 1,300 of those games forever on disc. But it looks like their current pricing model is you can either do a subscription. I think a 1-year subscription is $30.
$30, yep.
Or you can just buy lifetime access for $80. And they did mention that they're going to bring additional games to the collection, which I get. Can't really get a physical copy of something if they're going to continuously be adding to it. That doesn't really work like that. But still, would love it on a disc.
They could make updates to it and add games, I feel like, on the physical disc, especially if it's like an Xbox Series X disc. I feel like they would just be like an update that they roll through with more, like any other game. But it kind of looked like they were going to have a physical release, because it shows, like, if you look at their homepage, it says pre-order Antstream Arcade on Xbox, and it looks like it's a little physical, like a physical box for an Xbox up in the right corner.
Yeah, it's misleading. Like, they got the box art.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I'm looking at some cool games they're just showing in their video. This it's like some cool stuff I've never even seen before. Anyway, yeah, you can pre-order it at the moment. Does it say when it's actually releasing?
It says buy now on PC.
Oh, here it is, July 20th.
Oh, wow, that's 5 days.
Yeah, so this will be out soon.
I'm recording.
All right, so right now it says over 1,300 games, and then if you go to the game list, it says the library currently has 1,470 games. and it covers a lot of consoles. It's got games from the Amiga, Amstrad, Arcade, Atari 8-bit, Atari 2600, Atari 7800, Commodore 64, which the previous article was just talking about how those games are really hard to get a hold of, and there hasn't been much preservation work done on them, so that's nice that they include the Commodore 64. MS-DOS games, Game Boy, Atari Lynx, that old handheld Atari console, Sega Genesis, MSX, NES, Nintendo Entertainment System, PS1, PlayStation 1, Super Nintendo, ZX Spectrum, MSX2, and Atari 5200. So a lot of 80s stuff all the way to like the early 2000s.
I don't know if it dates me, but I did not realize they had so many different types of Ataris. I was that's eye-opening to me.
Yeah, I think the only one I ever actually played was the Atari 2600.
Did you own one of those? I thought you saw one. I thought there was something we played at your house growing up that might have been an Atari system, but maybe I'm wrong.
Nah, I never actually owned an Atari. Anyway, yeah, some of these I'm not familiar with, or not that familiar with. So yeah, it would like be all Discovery. Like I don't really know too many Amiga games, which looks like they've got quite a big list of those. Maybe 200 of the games are on the Amiga. Yeah, it says right there, 201 games on the Amiga. Amstrad, I've had little to no experience with that. Got 35 games from there. Arcade, 293 games. I think this is where I would be most interested in, some of these classic arcade games.
Yeah, same.
Just looking at it real quick. Rampage, love that game. Art of Fighting. Asteroids, classic. Let's see what else.
All the Metal Slugs, I love those.
Slugs. Bad Dudes versus Dragon Ninja. That is 80s all the way. Or early 90s. I don't know when that came out, but
they've got some Star Wars properties too, which is kind of impressive to have.
Yeah, really. Samurai Showdown, that's good. Battlezone. There's a game called Scrambled Egg. Okay. Shadow Force. Let's see what else. Yeah, I see the Metal Slug one. Smash TV, nice.
That's a good one.
Bubble Bobble.
Double Dragons.
What'd you say?
Couple of the Double Dragon 2 and 3.
Nice. You got the original Mortal Kombat, Splatterhouse, Spy Hunter, Centipede. Yeah, it is interesting that they were able to get the Star Wars games. I think that would be hard to get the rights to. Anything that's like...
Yeah.
Because then you have to get the rights to the game, and then you have to get the rights to whatever the game is made off of, whatever property it's made off of, when it's like a licensed game.
Got the Gauntlet arcades. I love Gauntlet.
Oh, yeah, those are so good.
Gauntlet 2.
So, man, just a ton of stuff. Yeah, I would dive into these arcade games and just probably try them all out. Nice. Yeah, Double Dragon games. Freaking love those.
Oh, yeah.
Tropical. Man, they got a lot. Fatal Fury. Okay, so this is a really good deal. Yeah, I see the Gauntlets. Atari 8-bit, I have no experience with, but they've got 28 games for that. Atari 2600. The Atari 2600 is pretty hard for me to go back to. Like, yes, it was a revolutionary console, but it's also like very rudimentary, and I don't know, man. It's not. I'm never like after Atari games when I'm out game hunting. Like when I went to that used bookstore in Gulf Shores, they had a whole rack of Atari games. I walk right past it. And most of the game stores, they'll just have a giant bin of Atari games, and they're like $1 a piece. Like, it's just, I don't know. I'm sure it has its niche and like cult following, but it's just not for me. So Atari 7800, never played that. Commodore 64, you've got 358 games. Again, it's pretty awesome that they're showing some love for this console, because it sounds like it's often overlooked. MS-DOS games. Only 5 games, but they've got Afterlife, Day of the Tentacle, Full Throttle. Day of the Tentacle and Full Throttle are great point-and-click games. So is they got The Dig and Sam and Max Hit the Road. So yeah, a bunch of classic point-and-click games. Game Boy, nothing that I've
Not
heard
much.
of. Atari Lynx. I've actually played an Atari Lynx in person when I was a kid, and it was pretty awesome. Sega Genesis, I looked through this game list. It's like nothing I've heard of.
Yeah, the only thing I heard of on here is Earthworm Jim.
They got Earthworm Jim 1 and 2. Okay. But yeah, the rest of these, I don't know. Maybe Sega's kind of like got the better games under lock and key.
I bet.
Yeah. Well, they got Zombies Ate My Neighbors. That's a classic. So at least 3 good ones I've seen. The MSX, I'm not familiar with this computer system at all. They've got 13 games from there. NES, 33 games. Maniac Mansion, which is great. California Games, that's fun. Noah's Ark, kind of random one.
Interesting.
But yeah, then the rest of these haven't really heard of or played. And I've played quite a few NES games. PS1, they have 2 games for PS1. 40 Winks and Loaded. And Loaded is like okay of a game. 40 Winks. Also, I kind of think I played that one.
I couldn't
think
tell
that
you.
was just like an okay game. 42 games for SNES.
See some repeat, like the Earthworm Jims are also on SNES.
Yeah, and so is Zombie Ate My Neighbors. It's like, do you really need the Genesis and the Super Nintendo version of those?
Right. And I've seen these Star Wars properties multiple times as well.
Yeah, and it's got the same Star Wars games. So. The ZX Spectrum, haven't had much experience with that PC, nor have I with MSX2, and nor have I had... There's one Atari 5200 game. Frisky Tom.
Frisky
Tom. Tom, keep your hands to yourself, man. We don't need you being frisky over here. You know, cool
If
it
we
down,
still named
bro.
our episodes random things, our episode would be titled Frisky Tom for sure.
Cool collection. Glad they're making it. I'm tired just thinking about how much work that was to put together.
Yeah, seriously.
Good job, guys. But anyway, yeah. That's the main reason I like to collect, man. There's a lot of these old games, and each year they get harder to find. Each year, more and more people get into collecting old games. They get bit by that nostalgia bug,
Sure.
and then prices go up and up and up. So
Silent Hill, prime example.
yeah.
Silent Hill is very hard to find nowadays for a cheap price.
You said Silent Hill?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man. Dude. Yeah. All right. I got to tell y'all about the prices on Silent Hill, which is a shame. Because
It is
Silent
a shame because
Hill-
nobody knew about it, really, for a long time.
Silent Hill is a classic series, which if you can't tell, we enjoy. But, yeah, dude. I'm so lucky I got all these Silent Hill games, like, years ago. I think the most I paid for a Silent Hill game... Well, I'll go through these one by one. So the original Silent Hill on PlayStation, right now, is averaging $170. And I think I paid maybe 40 or 50 bucks for this at the time. Maybe like 2015, 2016. And at that time, I thought that was really overpriced. There's no way in hell I'd be buying it today for 170 bucks. And then Silent Hill 2 is going for $116. I think I ended up picking that up for like 10 bucks at some random used electronics store. Again, probably back in 2015, 2016. The mass majority of my collection I got in like between 2015 and 2017. And that's when things were cheap and easy to get a hold of. But now it's just kind of ridiculous. So Let's see here. Holy shnikey, Silent Hill 2 Director's Cut for PC is averaging $5,900. Whoa. Let's see what else we got. Silent Hill 3 is averaging $167. Again, I think I paid like 10, 15 bucks for that. Silent Hill 4 The Room, $100. $50 if you get it on Xbox, $100 if you get it on PlayStation 2, which is kind of odd. I would think the Xbox version would be the better one. That one I think I got. Did I get that in Peoria? I don't know. I paid like 20 or 30 bucks for that.
Here's one for PlayStation 2, and it's only the case and manual. Silent Hill Shattered Memories, which I've never played, but just for the case and manual is $150.
No game, just the case and manual is $150. Okay,
yeah,
okay.
No.
So he says Shattered Memories. That was the other one I paid a lot for. And yeah, I got that probably like 2015 or 2016, and I paid like $50 for, no, and I paid $40 for it, and it was just the game. So I could use that case and manual, but I'm not going to pay $150 for
it. I wonder how much it full. Hold on, let me see. Silent Hill Shattered.
Shattered Memories. It.
Holy crap.
Yeah, what is that going for now? Now the disc alone goes for $280. And then if you want a complete copy, it's going to cost you over $300.
Yep.
And then Silent Hill Origins is another one, which is going for $120 for a complete copy, and I think I paid maybe $25 for that. But yeah, I couldn't believe it, man. It's crazy.
What's the Wii one called? Is that Shattered Memories?
Yeah, so that came out on Wii, and then they ported it to PS2. What's it going for on Wii? I got the PS2 version.
Looking like around $85 to $90.
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm seeing. But yeah, so this goes back to what we were talking about. The whole reason I picked up a physical copy of Shattered Memories is because you can't emulate it. At least at the time. I don't know if they've updated the PlayStation 2 emulator to where it can run that game, but at the time, that was one of those games that it would not run on emulation. So basically your only option was if it's still broken on emulation, then really your only option to play that is on an actual PlayStation 2. So yeah, like that game really needs to be readily available. So that's the problem. We rely on emulation for a lot of this stuff if it becomes hard to find, but we got to keep in mind emulators aren't perfect and they do not have 100% compatibility with the console's game library. Anyway, that's insane. Silent Hill, man, just raises the barrier getting into that series.
It does, unfortunately. But at least they seem to be reviving the property now with that, the stuff that we've talked about in prior episodes with the Silent Hill 2 remake as well as a couple new games.
Yeah, and Konami, the publisher that owns the rights to Silent Hill, they're coming out with a Metal Gear Solid collection that's going to have all the old Metal Gear Solid games for modern consoles. Hopefully, if that does well, they'll think about doing a Silent Hill collection and bring all these games to modern consoles. That would be amazing.
That'd be a day one purchase for me.
Yeah, same here. I'm like, man, give me all those remasters, all the Silent Hill games running HD all on one disc.
Yes.
You got my money, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, anything else you want to cover about video game preservation?
Nope. I think we covered it all. It was, good discussion.
All right, cool. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. You can find all our episodes on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, and our other social media platforms are...
You can find us on our Twitter at The Hills Are Silent. Our Instagram is Instagram/Hills Are Silent. Our TikTok is at The Hills Are Silent Podcast. Our YouTube is at The Hills Are Silent. If you have any questions, comments, game recommendations, if you beat Max Payne on hard mode with your Android phone, please send us an email at hillsarsound@gmail.com. We'll catch you in the next episode.